Yo, what's going on, people? J. Kevin Powell here, and this time I am rambling on a little bit about the concept of sourcing your material. Takes me back to my journalism days, y'all, because here's the idea, right? When you look at an article, whether you're talking about online these days, but back then, if you looked at an article in a newspaper, it would say the headline, and then right underneath, you got the byline. The byline says written by blah, blah, blah. For me, it said written by J. Kevin Powell. The point of that is not only does it tell you where the stories come from, it gives you an idea of who's sourcing what. Here's what I mean. While there is some distrust for media happening these days, I will say that one thing I think media has generally gotten right is the idea that you don't just go out and you just say whatever the heck is on your mind. You don't do essentially what I'm doing right now if you're a journalist. If you're a columnist, that's something different. You get to editorialize or have an opinion. But when you're a journalist, you go out and you report and you go find information. And when you go find information, you try to find information from sources. Now, if you're a small outlet, maybe the source is to talk to somebody local who lives where the paper is or lives where the media outlet is. If you're city or state, you start looking for experts who are city or statewide. If you're national, you look for national experts. Makes sense, right? The larger it is, the larger the source. But here's the deal. There are a couple things that I've always had with that. One, as objective, I got my objective, subjective, I'm trying to remember correctly, but as not having an opinion, objective you're supposed to have, um, you can always tell somewhat which way a person is leaning in the sources they get. If they get three sources that say one thing and one source that says the other, woohoo, shocker, maybe there's just an opinion that bends that way. But here's what I'm really getting at with this sourcing concept. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people where I'm really trying to understand or learn from their perspective or really want to know where they're coming from. And the only source they have is some random website. They can't remember the website's name, or you do go to the website name and it looks like somebody's blog. And in this person's blog, all they're doing is just dropping their opinion and this information, but they're not providing the source anywhere. Now, if they say, hey, the source is me, like I'm saying right now, hey, the source is me, then good deal. But even when I say the source is me, even if you look sometimes with some of my other videos, I'll pop up something and maybe it's a headline and I'll put in the bottom, here's the source for this headline. Or I'll pop up a picture and I'll put, here's the source for this picture. It's because I want you to know where I'm pulling information from. But sourcing is also good because you want to know that somebody else has the same opinion or somebody else is pulling information from something that was researched or studied or fact checked. I saw a video on Instagram the other day, and it's supposedly a video of some kids in China who were learning how to put together some 9 millimeters or some 40 millimeter handguns or something. And then the tag at the bottom said, the content at the bottom says something about, hey, they're teaching them how to do this from a young age, and our brains are rotting out on TikTok. Learn your lesson, folks, or something to that nature. Now let's go a couple different places, right? Because they're referencing watching videos on TikTok. Meanwhile, they've posted a video on Instagram. We won't go into that, but but the idea is we supposedly have this video that is coming from China showing elementary school Chinese kids pulling together handguns. And not to say that it's not real or accurate, but at the same point, where'd you get this video from? How do I know this is real? How do I know that somebody ain't put this together because the shots are up close? How do I know they ain't take a camera and this is pulled out of some movie? How do I know what I'm looking at? And yet you want me to make this big world decision, an opinion against whether I believe in China as a country or whether or not China is going to attack America or all these other wonderful things you want me to drive my full opinion to feel like I'm having this elevated thought because you put this video, I have no clue where you got it from. None. The problem with that is somebody's going to take that video, somebody's going to take that post, and that's going to be their argument for whether or not they like China or or not they like Chinese people. They're going to take that video and make their decision. And at no point will the question be asked, where did you get this from? Where's your source? Do I know somebody on the other side who can tell me some information about this? Have I ever talked to a Chinese person directly to ask if something like this actually does happen? There are about 5 or 6 or 10 different things you can do in that moment to determine whether that supports your belief, whether that doesn't support your belief, or whether you need to learn more. But we're in this expedient and expeditious country that just wants to jump to decisions sometimes. And so we will make up our mind right in there. Yeah, that's why I hate the Chinese. It bugs me, y'all. It bugs me that we so easily are willing to jump to the conclusion that we don't ask one of the first questions. Who's the source? Because just like me speaking now can honestly tell you I'm a human being who has certain beliefs and certain intentions. So even if I come to this out of the best and goodest intentions possible, there's still going to be an opinion. There's still going to be a way I want you to take this. There's still going to be a place in a direction I want this to go in. There still is. I'm going to have an agenda. I'm human. I'm going to have an agenda. Every other person is going to have an agenda because they're human. But what you have to do is you have to go find out the sourcing so you can determine the agenda, try to balance out your agendas, bam, 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 bam. Now you have an objective article to make your decision from. Because going back to that writer thing, when I was writing an article or when you look at those well written papers, you might have 5 quotes saying one thing, 5 quotes saying the other. Now you have a line down the middle. You decide. Now, how hard is that for us to do? How hard is it really? Because the truth is, people are going to say, well, we don't have the capability to, or I don't know anybody like this, or I don't know what to say, or I don't know how to find anyone, or I don't have the time. That's the one I really love. First of all, I won't call BS on don't have the time because I have more than a few people sending me videos of dogs running into stuff and people turning their faces into donkeys and using all these extra plugins and crap on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook talking about they don't have the time. You've spent 3 hours looking at that. You could have read a book by now. You could have done some research by now. You could have looked up some educational content by now. You just didn't want to. So it's not that you don't have the time. You just don't mind being ignorant about this subject matter. That's something different. So let's talk about that. But here is something that you can do relatively easily, especially if you're a social media person. Because the thing that's happened with social media is it's given us contact to people that we generally in the past just had to hunt down one way or the other. Now you can just DM them. Maybe they'll respond, maybe they won't. But if you DM enough, you'll get a response from enough. See? So we're going to use this technology to our advantage. This might also allow you the opportunity to do that thing that people worry about so much when they come to me and we're doing some inclusion type of subject or we're doing an inclusion workshop. I don't know where to start. Well, the first thing to start is to start. And it sounds dumb and it sounds cliche, but if you never go out and try, if you never move on it, then you're never going to start. You're going to keep on saying you don't know where to start and to the point where you don't do anything, and then you just allow yourself to hold your beliefs. So here's a spot for you to start. If you're a social media person and you're looking at these videos and you're scrolling down and you're going through these videos, I'm going to give you 2 things real quick. Number one, don't be scared to ask the source. Like, hey, where did you get this? Just DM and ask somebody, where'd you get this? Maybe they respond. If they do, it's probably a legitimate source. If they don't, you also have your answer. It's real easy. Number two, this one is a little more tricky. or maybe it's not tricky. Maybe this one just requires a little more bravery. But there are influencers out there who are willing, who are out there as influencers talking about their culture. So let me make this clear. I was using Chinese references earlier, so I'll stay into this. If you see somebody out there who's trying to be the Chinese Kim Kardashian, or they're doing Chinese style or Chinese fashion or Chinese music, not that person. But if you see somebody out there who's talking about Chinese culture and trying to educate the world about what it is to be a Chinese American or to be Chinese in this world, that person, DM them. Say, "Hey, I know you talk about stuff like this. I don't know about stuff like this. Would you please educate me?" And go humbly, by the way. Don't go having decisions and figuring out you already know the answer. Like, seriously. Because here's the deal, question like these, doing something like this is built off of relationship in the real world. And the truth is, you don't have a relationship with that person at the time. And you are asking them to say something to you without knowing you well enough to know how you respond. And also, I don't suggest doing inclusion in conversations like this necessarily online, but if it's the only one you have, if it's the only option you have, then take it and be humble and be open and just ask some open-ended questions and see the answers you get. Those are two. Third one, if you know anybody in your real life, human being life, inhuman, go hunt them down, ask them if they can educate you, and spend some time listening. And then when they tell you something, yo, ask them where the source is. Because if you come to me asking me something about Black America, thinking that I'm supposed to be the spokesman for Black America or I'm supposed to be the cultural conduit for you, then you're going to have the wrong guy. But if you ask me for my interpretation, my understanding of it, so be it. That's what you get. And let me be open about that real quick if you got this far. I am open for the questions that you feel are dumb when it comes to Black America or males or people from Baltimore, or when it comes to Christianity, or when it comes to HBCU graduates, or when it comes to musicians, anything that I claim myself to be, you can ask me questions openly. And I will not look at you as if you're an idiot. As long as you word it nicely, ask it openly, and aren't coming with your opinion already built in. If we can have an open discussion, let's have an open discussion. So, y'all, find the sources. Know the sources. Because if you're just taking anybody's word for it, you're just running off the bridge they're running off of. All right, y'all. That's it for this time. That's it for this rant. We'll have many more. I always have more. See y'all next time.